All right, so we're going to do a review on Love and Lies, otherwise known as Koi to Uso, which is the correct translation because that's exactly what Koi to Uso means. And this is an anime that came out on July 4th, so right there on Independence Day 2017. And it's done by Linden Films, the studio, directed by Seiki Takuno, whom has... Guy's got a lot of credits here. He has directed just about everything in the world. Sekko Boys, he directed that. I don't know what that is. Udon no Kuni no Kiniro Kemari. Anybody watch anime about an udon country?
No.
Yamada-kun and the Seven Witches or something?
Oh, I've seen that one before, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, okay, so Koi to Uso is this anime where... First of all, I can understand why I think Chiaki passed this anime some months ago. And I think that the reason for that is that the premise is really interesting. There is, obviously we all know that Japan has a really low birth rate. They're basically working themselves into extinction as we speak. And it's a huge problem. And I think the government recognizes that because they've tried to do different things to fix the birth rate, but it hasn't worked. And this anime has created sort of a fictional world where the government, at age 16, the government forces you to have an arranged marriage. So they will pair you up with another person when you turn 16, which they claim doing so has dramatically increased the birth rate, which, by the way, that concept itself is actually a lot more interesting than the anime was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the anime's first episode is quite good because you find that there's this boy, and his name is what the hell, Nejima.
Nejima?
Yukari Nejima.
Yukari, yeah.
And he is in love with a girl named Takasaki, and she's this really pretty girl that's in her class, and they're having this dilemma because he confesses to her that he likes her, and she miraculously says that he likes her back, that she likes him back, which is so rare. And so they get like this relationship going right as he's turning 16, and he gets paired up with another girl named Ririna. And sort of there's like this heartbreak thing because he wants to be with Takasaki, but he really can't because he's being paired up with this other girl. And there's some really adult scenes in the beginning of this show because there's a moment where they're on like this park bench all alone, having this emotional moment because they realize that they like each other, but they can't be together. And she looks at him and she's like, oh, what did she say? I took a picture of it with my phone because I thought it was so like out there. They're fooling around in the park, they're like making out on this park bench. And she says to him, as soon as I find it, she says, the way that I like you makes me want to kiss you and do other things too. And I'm like, wow, that's like a really mature comment for anime.
Yeah.
And then they go to and then they're making out on the park bench all alone, and they're like busting a slop and all that. And it's very sexual. And I'm like, wow, this is an anime that is like actually mature. You have a mature relationship here between two people that like each other. And then boom, like the government shows up, sort of serves the boy his papers that says you're going to marry this girl, who the girl who he's paired up with is very attractive. But he's in love with this other girl. And so that's sort of the premise of the show and how it unfolds. So I can't really blame Chiaki for having some faith in the show and passing it because the premise is kind of interesting and the way that the relationships are handled, at least initially, are pretty mature and believable. So where do we go from there with this, guys?
So I want to start with agreeing that I completely understand why like Chiaki passed this or Kimiko passed. I forgot which one of them did it.
It was
but
Chiaki.
Why it was passed, because the first 3 episodes, I remember me being locked in because the premise is very interesting. It's very meta. The birth rate in Japan is currently not where they want it to be. It's not meeting goals for life expectancy of the population. So I think it's interesting that this story tackles that problem that's very real. And I'm also like a sucker for episode 1s that give you a taste of the happy ending and then takes it away from you really fast, because I think that's very it's a jerk, it's a jerk towards like the story, and I think it's a very good way to get someone locked in, because you're like, oh shoot, okay, I see where this is going. um and in the first 3 episodes, I really like the main boy, and I like the two girls, because they're very well defined. Takasaki isn't paired up yet, and she logically is saying, like, I can't see you anymore, like you're paired with someone else, like, but I still like you so much, and that's why, like, when I see you, we're gonna make out because I'm still attracted to you, right? And Ririna at the beginning is also like not into Yukari, because who the hell is this boy that came out of nowhere? Just because I'm paired up with you doesn't mean I'm gonna like you. And she ends up liking Takasaki as a person, so she wants to help them out. And Yukari is a human being. He can't just delete his feelings for Takasaki immediately just because he got paired up with someone else, right? So like that those first 3 episodes they work because things are set up and things are consistent. Later on in the show, things get introduced that don't ever pay off, and that's where it kind of loses its edge for me. So there's another main character, I forgot his name, but he's a boy. Very interesting. I loved how forward they were with this guy being gay, and having a crush on Yukari, and stealing anytime he can with him, because he has his own agenda. He's just like, I can't be with this guy, but whenever I can, I'm gonna be there with him. But they set up this thing where like him and Takasaki have this like weird tension with each other, not like sexual, just like a weird tension. They never really explain it, unless I forget, because I saw this anime as it came out, so I don't remember everything. Please excuse me. So correct me if I say things wrong in chat.
They're good at that.
Yeah. I guess I'll learn as I go. But yeah, so that's set up. There's this whole like side plot where like the system might be a little corrupt. With this one character they introduced, this girl with like white hair, I think. That never really pays off either. And maybe I'll let Brains handle the ending so that he can, so when I pass it to him. But I didn't like the ending. It felt like we ran out of episodes, got to wrap it up somehow, and then they just wrapped it up. So I liked the anime in the beginning. I thought it was like it felt like Scum's Wish, because it let emotions be real and not very censored, which I think is important when you are talking about a subject like love. It's very realistic, and with this in this context, it felt realistic. It's a shame that throughout the anime, it kind of lost that flair it had. It kind of just became an anime where miscommunication is the devil. And yeah, so that's where I stand on it. I guess I'll wait for the rating. But Brains, you got anything to say?
I got quite a bit to say. First off, Icy Rose said in the chat. Quite a few people actually said it in the chat. Karyuki Cat and Frigimon Fanatic all said that this was Kimiko's pick.
Okay.
Oh, was it?
Yep. And
she said it wasn't, but she probably lied because she didn't want to admit it.
Well,
as I'm posting memes of like me blowing my head off and stuff the whole week.
Right. Well, so Chiaki's pick, which is somewhat similar to this, I can't remember if she was gonna pass it or if she did pass it, was Love Tyrant.
Oh God. That was definitely worse.
Yeah. So, but this show, I actually like this show a lot. I kind of like, was real down on it on the episode I did, mostly for comedic purposes. Like, this show isn't that bad. I think the biggest problem and why I'm down on it more than I should be is of two things that disappointed me about the show. The first was the fact that it didn't really kind of keep up with the thought idea of what it could have done with that premise. So my expectations kind of affected my viewing of the show. More like they totally ignored it completely. Yep.
Yeah,
well, not completely.
Definitely.
They had moments where they talked about it, but it didn't make sense. And the other end of it is the ending reminds me so heavily of the end of Macross Frontier, where what's the main character of Frontier? I can't remember his name right now.
Can't either.
the ending of Macross Frontier, you basically had the same kind of thing happen, like just the love triangle, you know what I mean? And depending on whether you watch the movies or the series, depends on the ending, but at the end of the series, the main character did this terrible thing where he just like, they're basically the two really hot idols. Well, okay, Cheryl Gnome's hot. I'm not a Ronka Lee fan. All right,
Plenty of people are.
Plenty of people are a Ronka Lee fan, yes. But these two idols look at him and say, make a choice. And at the end, he grabs both their hands and says, "You're both my wings." Like, what? Real life, you don't get to do this. What was it? Alto? Alto was his name. That's right. So I'm gonna leave out that, but like what this ending reminded me of was, "You're both my wings." Like, what?
Yeah, and sorry, go ahead.
The show's romantic moments where they build the relationships between the characters are great. Mm-hmm. I think that the characterizations of those girls is a little shallow at points, but the relationship building is fantastic. I seem to recall liking the art a lot in the show, and on top of all that, like even what was his friend's name?
Friend
I couldn't even think of it either.
Oh my god, it's because it's Ririna Misaka, or it's Riri, blah blah blah, Ririna and
Nisaka?
Takasaki.
Nisaka, Yusuke Nisaka.
Nisaka, yeah. Is his guy friend?
No. That's Nejima. Yeah, Yukari. No wait.
Nejima's the main character.
Nejima's the main character. It is Nisaka.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So like even the relationship with Nisaka, like while they kind of like played it for a little bit of like comedic effect and some BS, like with that, like the just the way it developed, there was some BS involved in that, but the growth of that character, it seemed every character kind of got like an episode or two of arc kind of focused on them, like. So it wasn't bad. I think the problem was the main character himself is so unlikable because he doesn't want to make a choice, because he is sitting there warring with himself on these things. And then apparently we get told halfway through the show that if he makes a choice other than the one the government gave him.
Okay, wait a second.
Messed up.
Play it again.
Spoilers are coming.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So, like, the biggest thing about it is it's this isn't like much of a spoiler, but like towards the end of the show, they like the whole premise of the show is he gonna choose so and so or choose so and so, and like basically the idea that they had to have this secret relationship, right? You find out like towards the end of the show that he doesn't have to make, or he doesn't have to stay with the woman he was assigned to at all.
Yeah, that's pretty frustrating actually.
I mean,
like it was like you just found out like, oh yeah, he can choose not to be with her at the end of 6 months.
Yeah,
but
yep.
It'll screw up his life.
I have so many questions about all this. Like, first of all, I looked up the birth and death rates of Japan. So Japan is fourth from last in the world on birth rate. The only countries that have a lower birth rate than Japan are Saint Pierre and Miquelon, which is some tiny island, and Monaco. By comparison, Japan has the 33rd highest death rate. So
jeez,
they're not doing too well. But the show is sort of a disaster. I mean, honestly. Like the premise of the show, I have so many questions. Like, first of all, they seem to know an awful lot about this government program. Right off the bat, they're talking about it in school.
Well, they should.
Yeah, they should, because they're talking about it in school, and they're all at the age where they're getting ready to be assigned. And you would think that, considering the breadth of knowledge that they seem to have, just as they talk about it an awful lot, you would think somebody would know oh, I can just quit on the girl I was assigned to after 6 months. And that virtually eliminates the entire show's plotline, because the whole show is about the emotional grappling that goes down in the beginning of the show with him not being able to be with Takasaki, and then a whole lot of drama between the three of them. And I'm like, well, none of that shit matters because he knows, because he can just friggin' quit on her. So like they basically negate the whole point of the show entirely.
No, I super agree, because and now I'm remembering. Thanks for the chat for saying a lot of good comments in the chat, because it's helping me remember a lot. I also remember being really confused by the fact that if the goal of this program, right, is to pair a man and a woman to reproduce, if these two guys, if this girl and this guy like each other already, can't they, like, to me it just made no sense to enforce it so hard where they even had to wait 6 months.
Exactly.
Where he could just be like, hey, government, how about the fact that her and I are already a thing? Can we just be a thing together? And you can make up some counter arguments, but like we can make up whatever we want. But in the show, it's not held up strong enough for that reasoning to not work. And then also going to with your point, Mitch, it does just kind of invalidate a lot of the drama. There's a lot of wasted potential for this show too. I had mentioned before, and I think Icy Rose mentioned him in the chat. Like, there's a gay character in this show, a gay man, in a world where you're going to be forced to go into male-female relationships, and that is such gold conflict to write with. And it is not explored as deeply as you could go. And then something else that I remember
it's
me
not
and
explored at all, really.
At all,
at
all.
He's just like, I'm gonna refuse marriage when it comes to me because my brother did his part and accepted one.
I'm just gonna say, look,
and that's like in a throwaway line where he then explains that if our main character Nejima throws away this chance, basically, yes, there's nothing bad that happens to you legally, but the societal stigma really affects you. You'll get rejected from your high-end university. You'll find it hard to get a job, etc.
No, totally. But that's why, like, when I say, like, he has a girl that is willing to be with him, you know? It's not like he's saying no and to be single. Like, the main dude could say no and then look to his left and be like, hey, Takasaki, we can be together now. Let's just go forward to the government together and get married right now. Like, you know what I mean? So that's why, like, even though they use that in the show as like a reasoning, I think it's just a very convenient way out for them.
So I wanted to make another observation real quick. Like, this is a very fascist society. Like, and I think I mentioned it in on the episode I reviewed this, but like BCom just said in the chat, he's like, it's because it's more than just about making babies. In the beginning, they allude to the fact that it's basically a eugenics program. They say it has led to an increase in average IQ, etc. But like, so that is something that's also very like prescient. Just like if you think about that world at all, you're like, this is basically like a Nazi eugenics program or Japanese eugenics program, basically, where they're just like, yep, you and you are very, very are the most compatible you can possibly be. So let's make babies out of you. And that's what they're doing. Like, it's about so much more than just increasing the birth rate. It's about creating the most perfect children and everything through their through their match, through this program. And so much of it is not touched on, which I don't know if we should be mad at the show for not touching on something.
You should be
like that.
You should be, because that's the whole premise of the show. The whole premise is, well,
the premise of the show is the relationships between those two people. Like, to be fair, but it's the problem that the world, like the world building that they do for this world, and basically the world building is what causes the conflict, like you said, Mitz. But then they completely throw away that world building halfway through a 12-episode show. Like,
I kind of like what I'm reading that Icy said, and it's kind of making me think a little bit more. He says that the system is kind of proven to work based on the fact that Yukari and Ririna do end up liking each other near the end of the show. So that's kind of cool. I didn't realize that, so I take a step back. But I still think, like, if in the moment because Ririna and Yukari didn't start out well at all. So that's why I think it was a whole bunch of wasted time to wait 6 months when you could just try with this other girl. But that's a good observation, Icy Rose.
Going back to the gay character, I don't even know why there's a gay character in this anime, to be honest. Because
it's a good idea. It's a good idea for writing material. That conflict is incredible. It's physical conflict, it's internal conflict, it's conflict against your backdrop, which is it's a gold mine, but they didn't write anything.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so, but I think more likely they stumbled into it ass backwards because this anime can't even get the initial premise established, let alone dive into something that deep and political. So, and to just top that off, like I get that there's this society where male and females are paired off, and that makes you wonder, well, how does the gay character fit in, right? But this society is obviously pretty horrific for the straight people too, because nobody wants to be forced into an arranged marriage with someone that they don't know. And I feel like the initial meeting between Ririna and whatever the hell the main character's name is, Nejima, like they're pretty much under emotional duress the entire time. And so this society is pretty much horrific for everybody. But the premise of the show was arranged marriages that was just a cheap way to create some like love triangle drama. And so as far as I'm concerned, the show shouldn't even have a gay character in there because that's not what the show's about. Like if you're going to, maybe you could say, oh, if you're going to put a gay character in there, then you should do something more with it. But like that's not what the show's about. So I wonder why that's even in there at all, to be honest.
So like I'll partially disagree with your statement. You can throw a gay character in there and do nothing with the fact that they're gay, but it's how they threw the gay character in this show particularly. Like he's in love with the main character. He's in a society that forces marriage between straight people. I mean, you basically could have created the same show, but just done rich people with arranged marriages. I mean, arranged marriages are a thing we've seen in anime plenty of times. Well, and they could have created more conflict with it by making it a little more dramatic, and like these parents are like all up in their business, making them be that way.
Well, I think you sort of just highlighted my point, because my point is just simply, I don't understand if they weren't going to do anything with the gay character, why have him in it? Just for the sake? Is it just for the sake of it? Is it just because? I was
clarifying the fact that you're not necessarily saying if they have a gay character in an anime, but in this particular anime, the way they wrote him.
And what I'm saying is they should not have wrote him if they were not intending to do anything with it.
Right.
I don't. The show couldn't even get its shit together to accomplish the task of just figuring out how to have two people deal with having an arranged marriage, let alone throw something that controversial and political into the discussion. Like, there's no freaking way they were gonna succeed there. They can't even get their shit together to accomplish the first thing. So I don't know why. I don't understand the point of it. And I don't understand the point of, it would make a lot more sense to me if his gay friend if he was in love with another gay person, but they couldn't get married. Because then I'm like, oh, well, now that makes sense, because they're not allowed to get married in a society where arranged marriages are only between man and a woman, which, by the way, the whole point of the show was to create babies. So we all know that two dudes aren't making a baby. But like, that's not what happens. He falls for his friend who has not one but two girls that he's dealing with. So I don't know. It doesn't fit. It doesn't make any sense at all. They could have made the whole premise about what it's like to be in that society for people that don't quite fit into the bounds of their weird fascist social construct, but that's not the choice they took to make, and that just highlights how bad the writing in the anime is. It doesn't. Most of the stuff in the show makes no sense.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I wanted more from that character for sure. Because it's interesting, It's a good perspective to try and write on, give a voice to that character. But yeah, it's unfortunate.
It probably could be argued that it would have been a more interesting show had they taken that route.
Yeah, I know. I would love to see that. I would love to see that anime.
But I can't really fault I can't fault the anime for not doing anything with the character. I fault the anime for having the character at all.
All right. I half agree. I think he aside from the one facet of him, which is that he's gay, he is a great friend as well. So he did that part well.
Yeah.
I mean, that part of the writing is done well. I just wanted to know more about him.
Well, maybe there'll be a sequel. God, I hope not.
Should we talk about some of the good things about this show? Because we have been kind of tearing it up a little bit.
Well, I don't really like anything about it, to be honest. I watched 2 episodes of it, thought it was interesting, and then it did literally nothing for like 8 episodes straight. It was just random shit that made no sense. Like a boy who is terrified to do sexual things with either girl, even though he's kissing the girls and is obviously plenty old to be. I mean, I get that he's not an adult, but they're pairing them up for arranged marriages at 16, so that kind of throws the you have to be 18 to be an adult rule right out the window. He can't get his shit together to do that. You got like Nina trying to get him to like make out with Takasaki, which I never understood. Like she has some kind of like a sick fetish with telling her to be her fiance to make out with other girls. And then like the show it was so boring that it was one of those moments where you're losing your focus because nothing is happening. And I ended up turning it on to like 1.5 speed because I'm like, this is crazy. Like they do nothing in this anime at all. So okay. I don't know. What are the good points?
I think this anime has a very strong rising action. I think at the beginning, the setup is a super strong point because it gives you a premise. It gives you enough to make you wonder. It sets up 2 characters that have this new established relationship that is immediately taken away, which is always interesting to read about or witness on the screen. I think the characters in context in this world with this backdrop interact in a way that I like in the beginning. I think that the art was really well done. I remember liking the music as well. I like that they're forward forward as in the anime wasn't afraid to show passion with when they kiss and everything. I liked that it wasn't afraid to show Takasaki being forward like as a woman in anime, which you don't see a lot. And so I think those are all really good things. And I think from that core, you had the opportunity to make an anime that was very interesting. You could have even taken this anime. I remember talking with Andrew, Frigimon Fanatic, a while back while this was ongoing. Midway through, we were like, is this the anime that tackles polyamory in a very good way? Because maybe this could have been the anime about the first paired polyamorous couple, you know? So like, and that's interesting to take it that route. It's never been done before, I don't think. With the whole government being like
not really polyamorous. Like they've had. I mean, you've had your Tenchi Muyos, etc.
Right, but that's like a harem, you know.
Yeah.
This is like an actual like. This one would have seemed more like. Well, I have friends that are polyamorous. This would have seemed more like true to what I've witnessed and heard about from my friends. So I think there's a lot of opportunity here. And then it falters just from the fact that I think it loses itself in its own world building, and yeah. But I think that's what I like about the show. I think the beginning is something you could learn from. So that's my takeaway.
I don't know, Enzo. Having actually been in a polyamorous relationship before, I watch anime now, and I'm like, practically every anime I watch is like borderline polyamory. Okay. We just reviewed Gamers. I mean, like, there's a ton of shows out there that kind of tiptoe that line without they don't mean to do it, but like the whole concept of a harem sort of plays at that.
Mm-hmm. I think the harem genre plays at that, but I think this one would have been more like I don't know. I think this one would have been more true.
So yeah, right. That's what I was gonna say. I mean, you can see that Ririna almost has feelings for Takasaki. Like
right.
That's
I kind of
like
saw that a little bit.
Real thing, and I kind of wonder, like, with the way this anime ends, say they make a season 2, if they will dive into like the feelings that she has for Takasaki, because they are more than just friend. I mean, yes, she adores her as a friend, but there is. Not maybe necessarily something romantic, but maybe almost familial there, in a way that would make sense that you see some polyamorous relationships develop. Like in like there's not like the outright rivalry thing going on, and like there are points in the show that are very like dramatic and hit right, like I can't remember what episode it is, but it's the episode where they have to go for that little seminar about sex, Ririna and Nejima. And I think what happened was he was basically kind of tricked by a government agent who was just pretending, like joking, you know, but also didn't seem like he was joking. And he kind of goes too far with Ririna, like without her permission. It is a very, very important, I think, moment, because they don't play it off for joke or comedy. What they sit there and they do is they actually talk about, like, they show her crying, and like Nejima knows he messed up, and they talk about that, and they don't spend time together because of that. And then when they finally do spend time together again, it's a whole conflicting mess at first, because they don't, like, they are having to write letters to talk to each other. I mean, there's something almost heartwarming about the fact that they, like, really heartwarming about the fact that they were sending letters back and forth. Ririna and Nejima, the reason for their split so that more characters could get focused made sense, and it was kind of dark, and it makes sense for kids that honestly don't know what they're doing, and it's very interesting. I think they just, the execution, like, this show has great moments. I think it just, like, I can't remember which one of you said it, but the show gets lost in its own world building. I mean, that's what it really is. Heck, even Nisaka,
yeah.
Misaka. His arc with that school festival is kind of good. Like, I enjoyed it. Like,
yeah, me too.
If I sit down and look at the show with the individual arcs and the character development and the interactions between the characters, not necessarily look at that. If I throw out that world building for the most part, except for, oh, these people are kind of put in an awkward position because of this, and just ignore everything else, like, there are great moments in the show. And I'm not saying you should have to ignore it, but, like, you can, if you just kind of ignore that world building that kind of permeates the show and kind of screws everything up, you can see the great moments in there. It just is it's a hard balancing act that they didn't manage to follow with their world building. They tried to build the world too much in too short a time and then contradicted themselves.
All right, guys, I got to call it. One more. Give me a phrase that summarizes how you feel about this anime, and then give it a score.
This anime is when you fall in a hole, right? And then slowly but surely, more and more trash is piling on top of you. And sometimes, like I was discussing with a friend before, you see peaks of light and you reach for it, but then inevitably more trash covers those peaks of light, and you're just stuck down there with what you saw. Okay. And I give it 3.5.
Damn.
Red strings out of 5.
Fuck, that's generous. My phrase would be wasted potential. I think this whole anime had a good concept, and the whole concept was just intended to be a roundabout way to arrive at love triangle drama, which is ultimately garbage. So I'm going to give it 2 wasted opportunities out of 5, or two people busting a mad slop out of 5.
A mad slop?
Yeah, like when the saliva string is like 12 inches long, which never happens in life.
Oh, man.
You might get to 3 inches. I don't know about 12.
You got to teach me more catchphrases like that, man.
It's from the Boondocks.
Gotcha.
Brains?
Okay, so my phrase would be, this is a trash bag that is thoroughly mixed together and filled with wrapped, delicious Kit Kat candy bars from Japan, right? But there's also a bunch of raw meat that's been sitting in there a couple of days. Like, but this anime has great moments in it. And so I think that if I look at the anime and I say to myself, if I had to compare this anime to, let's say, 70% of the rest of the shows that came out this year, I can't see it real low, because it had great moments. Its execution was off, but that doesn't necessarily make the whole thing bad. I think that it's problematic, but so I'm going to rate this a 3.5 out of 5. I'll go with second bases.
So the average is a 3. So we'll give it a 3 out of 5.
I'm okay with 3 out of 5.